you've just confirmed something that is so evident to me in doing all of these interviews with people, that nobody dies before their time. But when it's your time, it's your time. So it doesn't matter what you've done, what you've tried to do to mitigate it. If it's your time, or if somebody prevented you from getting in a car that was meant to be a car accident, then maybe you're going to get hit walking across the street the next day. Like, you, when it's your time, you're going to go. And when it's not your time, conversely, you are not.
Yeah. I had it all, the spirit was giving me all these things to say, and I was like, okay, where is it now? Two things. When we pass, out of every near-death experience I had, I can say this with 100% of who I am and from my heart. We will not feel pain no matter what. If somebody was shot, somebody was killed in a horrific car accident, somebody was murdered, somebody you witnessed having struggling in their body, taking their last breath, they're not feeling it. That's the body going through it. The spirit no longer feels it. I was out of body. I was watching. I was present. We will not die in pain. So take that with you. And the other part is, you talk about, is it your time?
My guest today is Debra Martin, who had 3 near-death experiences, and in the third one, she understood that she was going to be bringing back with her the ability to heal people. She's healed people from all kinds of ailments, including even some cancers, but more importantly, she's been able to help people release emotional trauma, and we are gonna dive down deep and talk about all of these areas. So, Deborah, welcome. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Oh my gosh, it's my pleasure. Thank you for having me.
I am so excited with you. We just discovered that we live about probably 2 miles from each other in the same town, which is just kind of ironic. But this is going to be a great conversation because I am very, very much into anti aging, healing, alternative healing. And one of the things I've understood for a long time is that everything in the future is going to go to energy. We're going to be using light and frequency and vibration. And this is evidence because you and many other people that I've had conversations are already doing this. So I'm really excited to find out how this gift developed for you. So why don't you start with what your life was like before you had any of these near death experiences?
Okay, so I call them shifts, right? We all have shifts in life. Sometimes they're really happy. We have babies, we get married, right? We might have loss, which is a different type of shift. And we might have an NDE, which is, for me, ended up being major shifts in my life. And sometimes we don't notice them right in the beginning. It takes a few years to really realize the blessing out of that near death experience. So if anybody had a near death experience and says, well, I didn't get any gifts, or I don't know anything that came from it, it could still be integrating. It could still be coming out in you. It's all about the timing. So as a little girl, I could see spirit, about 4 years old. And I can remember being frightened by them. Basically, you're seeing faces at you and you're like, what are you here for? I don't want to see you. And that's one of the things that I would always do, is call down to my mom and dad downstairs and say, can I come downstairs? I can't sleep, right? And they say, go to bed, Deborah. So that fear pushed it away for many, many years. Then later in life, I was out with a few girlfriends. I was a single mom of three, and we decided to go out just for, like, to watch a sports game on TV. And that night was the same night that Princess Diana had passed. So as we're watching the screen, we look up, and if you remember, everything became silent. Everything became so focused on that, and it changed the whole feeling. So when I left that night and I was supposed to get in the back seat of a two-door sports car, I felt I wasn't supposed to. My friends were like, oh, that's just because you just watched that with Princess Diana. You have kids too. I didn't know what a premonition was at that time. I had no idea what this all meant. So I got in the car. So as we were proceeding home on the freeway, we were in the slow lane, and there was a big truck like a sports utility truck with no windows, and it was in the fast lane. And as we were speeding down the highway, I won't say speeding, but going fast on the highway, I all of a sudden knew, I don't know how I knew, but we were going to be hit. And I just all of a sudden said, no, 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 not now. I'm a mother of 3. They need me. At that very moment, we had impact. It spun our car. We took out 40 feet of guardrail. He flipped twice off the freeway, and we came to a stop facing other cars coming towards us. Our car was so damaged, we couldn't get out. It was just metal. And as I sat in this little pocket of the back seat, I was like, how are we going to get out? All of a sudden, out of nowhere, this gentleman comes, opens it like no big deal, and carries each of us to the embankment. There were 3 of us. Now, the driver broke her leg. The passenger in the front seat, the seatbelt was broken. She was in my lap. And he carries us to the embankment, and he looks at me and he says, you're going to be okay. And I said, no, no, no. And I wore this ring tonight because this is the ring that I was wearing. You can't bend it. It's super, super strong. He took it and he put it in his mouth because it was bleeding. And I said, oh, can you help me get this off my finger? So he took it, he put it in his mouth. I have his teeth marks on here, and I actually printed it in my book so you could see them. And then he kissed me on the forehead and he left to the left, to the left. And when I looked to the right, there were like all these fire trucks and policemen and ambulances coming. And when I looked to the left, he was gone. Now, my friend said that he kissed them on the forehead as well. So we know that he existed, but no one else saw him. So I believe that day, as soon as I said, no, 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 we had divine intervention. Okay, so nothing really happened to me out of body. But that was a near-death experience to me because it was like, I really felt if I didn't have that premonition and say those words, it would have been differently, the whole accident.
Wow, Deborah, that's incredible. Have you since been able to figure out who that man was?
No, I've
You
searched.
haven't. I thought
Yeah.
for sure you were going to say yes.
No, I really believe it was divine intervention that God somehow brought someone down because no one
Oh, no,
saw
that's
it.
what I mean. No, no, like, was it an angel? Was it one of your spirit guides? That's kind of where I was
Oh,
going
yeah,
with
yeah,
it.
yeah.
I
No,
got
yeah.
that it
Because
wasn't
I
real.
did go and search. I did go and search for him, like ask the hospital, ask the police officers, was there anybody that gave a testimonial? No, no. So, yeah, there was this little boy that had this intuitive abilities, and I remember being at like a conference, and he just said, "Oh yeah, you were saved by a saint out of nowhere." So I know that some angel came down and saved us.
Do you remember what he physically looked like?
No, no, not at all. No details, nothing. You're so in that moment and you would think you would see it. I just felt this love. I felt this. I knew it was male. I was standing there. I was asking him to take this ring off my finger. So I knew it was real. But if you ask what color hair, what color eyes, color skin, nothing.
Well, and you're in shock from an accident at the
Right.
same time too, so that's understandable. Okay, so that's your first experience.
Right.
So you want to share the second one?
Yeah, the second one, oh gosh, it's another car accident. This time I was going to a friend's house and I was on just the regular streets, and I was going to turn into a turn bay, which is going to let me go across into the next neighborhood. And as I'm traveling down the street, I get into the turn bay and I'm just sitting there, no premonition, nothing, just waiting for the traffic to go so I can cross the street. And before I know it, I'm out of my body and I am in another dimension and I'm looking down. And now I'm going to see what's actually going to take place. And so I felt this huge being behind me and it felt comforting. But he said, are you ready? And I looked down and go, well, I'm not going to survive that. I was hit by a man in a diabetic seizure going 60 miles an hour. He hit my rear end, spun me into oncoming traffic. And what I was seeing was a truck carrying a trailer, another truck, and he was going to come on top of me and crush me. So there's just no way. And as soon as I said, no, I'm not ready, and I saw that vision, I was inside the back seat of, I had a 4-door Honda Accord. Now it was a 2-door, and I was in the back seat of my car, this car again. All windows were blown out. I had a glass full of mouth. And I'm just not aware of what's going on, just where am I? Now, a police officer comes to my window, and another man comes to my window, and I hear the police officer say to him, "Are you okay?" He says, "No, I'm not. I'm really shaken. I I don't know who took my steering wheel, but I should have drove over her. In a split second, something took my steering wheel and put me into oncoming traffic. I don't know how that happened." And when he said that, it was like a download. I remembered it. So having the out of body experience, hearing spirit on the other side, that opened my door to my mediumship again. And that's when I decided, okay, I'm going to go get tested by Dr. Gary Schwartz at the University of
Oh my
Arizona.
gosh, I love that you're talking about this. I know who that is, but I'm gonna guess that a lot of people watching have no idea who he is.
Yeah, so he tests the mediums to see if I had to go through a 9-step rigorous course to become a certified medium, and now I'm a certified medium with the Windbridge Institute. But yes, so I wanted science to have my back. Am I really seeing this? Am I really hearing this? You know, test me, because I don't want to go helping people. I feel that it's real, but tell me that I'm doing what's right. And so I did go past that, and that gave me that gift. I would say the gift was always there, but it opened it up, right? The first
Yeah.
accident, it kind of got me into the awareness of what happened, who is that divine intervention, kind of opened the afterlife up. But this, hearing the voice, was like, wait a minute, now I'm hearing things. Let's take it
Okay, I
forward.
think this is so I love that you brought this up. I've known about Dr. Gary Schwartz for a long time. Isn't he out of the University of Arizona in Tucson?
Yes.
So the process for this, I just want people to understand how this works. So you say you're going to do a mediumship reading, and they
Mhm.
have you do it in different phases. So, like one phase, you are doing a reading where you know who the other person knows. So, but there's a whole bunch of that blinded stuff. Will you explain to people? Because I want people to understand the credibility that comes with this type of a certification. These are considered beyond statistical significance with your abilities to give information that you couldn't have known. So, will you explain a little bit more about it?
Yeah, so it used to be called the Veritas Center, and Dr. Julie Beischel and Dr. Gary Schwartz worked together. Then Julie Beischel left Gary, they kind of split. And so I was tested with them, and then I was tested with Julie Beischel's program, which is a 9-step rigorous research lab medium. And so being tested by both is great, but if you go onto the windbridge.org, you can actually look up the testing and read it, what we went through. But basically, um, you'd have like somebody that I don't know, right? So Julie might have the list of all the people that we're going to be reading, but she hands it to somebody else. So there's no way that Julie knows who I'm going to get. I know who I'm going to get. And all I'm getting is it a male? Is it a female? That's it. So now I have to go sit down and connect. And I have like maybe a few days to do this. And I have to write down, what does he look like? What did he do for a living? Does he have anything to say to his loved ones? Really describe, does his personality come through? Right. So those are things. And then what happens is I now turn that in, and it all has to be typed out. So there's no kind of connection whatsoever. So I send it back to that person that sent it to me, who I don't know. Now they give it to 2 sitters. Now a sitter is the person that I would be reading, right? So the sitter is now going to get 2 readings, right? They're going to get one from somebody else, one from me. but they're two different sitters receiving the same one that I just did. And they have to tell which one's theirs. And then that gets scored. They score it, right? And then there's more testing besides that. And in the final, we get to actually do a reading on the phone with that loved one. So it's quite extensive, but there's no debunking it. It's a quadruple blind experiment.
I love it. I think that this is why I wanted you to explain this, because there are people and they're like, oh, mediums, it's just they're making things up. There are truly people, and especially I see it, I'm not taking anything away from somebody who has not had a near-death experience, but there is something about you coming in open, seeing spirit at the age of 4, closing it off, and then having a near-death experience and opening it again, and then further connecting to it with your other experiences. So I love that you're sharing this, because I know I've had enough readings in my life to understand the transformative power it has when you can really and truly connect to somebody's loved one and give them messages that their heart and soul is craving to hear.
And it's so far beyond what you think you're going to get.
Yes.
I did this one, so I do healings. I can tell you this real quick and then we'll go to the third one.
I love it. Please.
But
Yes.
one of the things that came through, and this was for an emotional healing. I didn't know anything about her. I didn't know that she had tried to commit suicide 3 times, that she was put in an institute, any of this. But one of the things that spirit comes through with is, I feel we're going to another dimension and we're going up with an umbrella like Mary Poppins. And so I start laughing because God can be, humorous. And I go, Mary Poppins. Okay, here we go, and it's all fun. Come to find out that they call her Mary Poppins. She was from England. She learned how to speak English through Mary Poppins. And whenever she packs her bags, her mom says, "You pack just like Mary Poppins." Like, you can't make that stuff up. And
I love
even
it.
me, I'm laughing at it like, okay, you
Right,
find,
because you say it and you don't, necessarily know if it's gonna hit or how it's gonna hit. You just know you're
but
supposed to say it.
But when I'm getting it, it's like a vision, and it's like a movie, and we're walking through it and we're doing it together. And whether she's feeling like she's having an out of body experience while I'm doing it at the same time, or when she listens to it, it's just miraculous. And that's when it's like hits home to her, like, this is so real.
Right.
Mhm.
Yeah, no, that's so special, because people, when they get confirmations like that, they oftentimes will change things that they thought before. I mean, it really does confirm that love does not die, that
Yeah,
truly our spirits live on, our loved ones lived on. They don't leave us. They know what's going on in our lives, and that can have so much healing power for people.
it can. And so going into my third NDE, I was very, very sick. This was years later. And doctors at Mayo Clinic couldn't figure out what was wrong with me. And I can remember laying in bed, and I had a daughter in 3rd grade at the time, and my other children were out of the home. I can remember going, look, they're better off without me. I have no quality of life here. I've lost control of my bowels. I was in a fetus position in pain constantly. Doctors couldn't figure it out. And I was just like, God, just take me. Just take me. And thinking back now, I can't even imagine thinking that. Right. So, but it was that painful. And one day, as I was laying there, I saw a spiritual surgeon come into my room. Now, funny thing is, people ask me, well, were you afraid when they came? And I'm like, well, no, as a medium, I'm not, I was used to that, right? So, spiritual surgeon comes into the room, and I start seeing them like getting ready to operate on my abdomen. And I can remember it starting to be very, very painful. Like, they were going into, I would say, like, my pancreas area, and they were squeezing it. And I can remember just screaming with pain and going, okay, I want to stop this. But do I want to stop this? What's happening? What is happening to me? So I decided in times when you're in that much pain, you try to remove your mind from it. And so I thought, well, I'm just going to do that. I'm going to take a deep breath and I'm just going to calm my mind and let them do what they need to do. And so when I did that and I closed my eyes and I took that deep breath, I now came out of my body. And I remember floating up and I'm like, ooh, this feels kind of nice. And I kept floating and floating and I came to this area that was just all white light. I can just describe it as if you were standing on a cloud. There's nobody else around you. And you're looking around going, okay, now what? I'm kind of here all by myself. What do I do? And these hands came out to me, reached out to me. And this bright light got brighter and brighter and brighter and brighter. And now I recognize that this must be God. But now I'm realizing he's holding my body. So now my soul is watching what is happening. And so he turns around, he starts walking. I'm like, well, I'm gonna follow. And he lays my body on a beam of light, and there's a beautiful coffin next to it. And I was like, oh, it looks like Cinderella's coffin. It's all glass. I wonder if I could just go touch it and sit in it. And I'm like, ooh, probably not a good idea. And so I remember him turning around and we were going into this dome, and I questioned everything, like, why do I have to go in a dome? And he said, because what I'm going to speak to you is for nobody in the universe to hear. This is between you and I. So as we are sitting in this dome, I can remember sitting on a chair like this. I remember like it felt like a table and my lifeline contract in front of me. And once again, the being was behind me. And I felt so much love and I felt no pain and I felt just peace and pure love like you don't feel here. And I start looking at my lifelong contract and, it's just, it wasn't all the past and it wasn't all the future. It was just a page. Basically, and I stated in my book, but it stated like health, prosperity, voice, and health was not good enough for me. I needed to know I was going to be healthy. So I was questioning, no, I need to have this corrected. And it was. Voice, I just thought, oh, he just wants me to continue with my mediumship work. I can do that. And I said, well, before I decide to do this, can I see my parents? And he said, no, because you won't want to go back. It's kind of like it was a dimension. It wasn't the other side. And so while I'm sitting there, he says, sign this and remember the date, 1/21/12. All numbers are reversible, and so is this. You are on borrowed time. It's time for you to go back with a new mission and a new duty. And I was like a little apprehensive, going, okay. And then it was like there was scribble, like he was signing. It says, I'm signing this oath with you. It's not only you doing it, but I'm doing it with you. So I thought, well, that's pretty powerful. So I asked if I could stay just a little longer because I knew that I was not in any pain. He said, no, it's time for you to go back. And never looked at the coffin again. And now I knew that that meant I was making a choice. And as I was coming back, I can remember just slowly, just as if I was floating down. I can remember going in my body, you know how like a air mattress fills up? I could feel like I went in, but I remember gasping like, oh, like that for air. And I was like, am I the same person? What just happened? There's no more spiritual surgeons in the room. Everything was calm. And I knew at that moment I needed to write everything down. Like I thought I was going to forget it. When something like this happens to you, you don't forget it. But I didn't want to forget every detail. It just was so real. At that time, months later, when my former husband was trying to understand what NDE was, and now I have this new mission of helping people with healing work. I had to make a choice. It was too much for him. He didn't want this in his life. And I was like, where was that written? My life was great. My foundation was great. Everything in life was perfect. We'd never argued. but I made an oath. And he understood. He said, "You will regret me if you don't do what you need to do." So we parted ways, and it was tough. When I say sometimes things are tough, it was like, I can remember, how am I going to buy groceries? I'm like laying on the floor of my home, trying to pick myself up and going, I didn't know it would be this hard. Looking back, I know God was molding me. How strong do you believe in this? How strong are you going to stand in this? And having that empowerment, you can do this no matter how hard it is. I've got your back. Remember, you're not doing this alone. And so it opened this whole nother door of adding my mediumship and my healing abilities together. And so that's what I do today is I don't do the traditional readings. I do the healings and readings. So if somebody wants to have a connect with a loved one, I will connect in the morning first, and then we go into the healing session. And if that loved one comes through in the healing session, I've had clients say they felt them, they smelt them, they got to hug them, they got to go to another dimension and speak with them. So it's just fascinating what's all available to us. And it's unlimited. And so when somebody says, like, can you heal this? Well, I'm not God, but I do believe that everything's possible and not to limit it. So when somebody's going through an illness, I try to tell them, take your power back. Because as soon as we hear, I have cancer, and now I'll tell you something, I had to go through cancer too. And this was 5 years back. And it's like, how can I be a healer and have cancer? Like, what do I say? Do I tell people? Will they believe me? And I was like, no, that's part of molding me. But I was like, at this time, I'm like, well, what can I possibly do? I have as much compassion. I'm healing everybody, that I can. What do you want me to learn from this? And what I learned was as soon as we get a diagnosis, that becomes power. So all of a sudden you hear a diagnosis that says it's not curable. So what do we say? It's not curable. And so our body owns it, our mind owns it, and we lose our power within. And so I learned having cancer, not only having cancer so I can help people with cancer, I now understand what they're going through. I walk the walk. I can hold their hand. I'm not just looking through the window in, I'm in that room with them. But it's also to say, don't give the term power. I can remember God saying, I didn't create that term, just like I didn't create a tree as a tree. You humanly came up with those terms. So yes, this is a term, but what are you going to do with it? And so what I chose to do with it, which I think would help many people that are listening, is they always say, get strong, fight, 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 fight. And I decided, no, that's not how I want to handle my cancer. I want to send love to my cancer. I believe love heals. And so if you have a sick child, do you get mad at them for being sick? Or do you nurture them and hug them and embrace them? And that love helps them feel content, lets them know they're safe, that they're okay. So I decided to do that with my cancer. Let me embrace you. What do you want to teach me? What are you here for? I didn't know what my outcome would be, but I knew that no matter what, no matter the outcome, I was going to be okay. All would be well either way. And it freed me. It was like I was now free of the term, and I could just be. I can tell you during that time, I felt like I was so connected more than ever because all the stuff around us didn't matter anymore. And it was very empowering. And so if you can learn to love your body, send love to those areas, and that's not easy. When you're dealing with pain and you're frustrated with pain day in and day out, and you're like, I can't take this anymore, it's hard to say, okay, I'm going to send love to you. But if you can just take a moment, even through that frustration, because I believe frustration is resistance. and just take a deep breath and say, okay, I'm okay. Right now, I am okay. And just put your arms around yourself. Tell yourself, I love my body. Because before you were ill, that body was magnificent. So it still is magnificent, and we forget that. So we have to thank it for all that it has done and all that it can continue to do.
Oh my gosh, Deborah, there's so many parts of that that I love that you shared. First of all, one of the main reasons I love to do what I do and have a conversation with somebody like you is because you share the gold nuggets. You share the tips and the recommendations of things that work for you, and you empower other people to do something for themselves that not like they have to come to you to have a reading. You just gave people free information that is so important about loving themselves. And I'm going to ask you this question. Do you think that those things, like having to end your relationship, the cancer, going through the pain, do you think they happen to you, or do you think they happen for you?
I think everything happens for us, not against us. And
Yeah,
I
I
really,
am such in agreement with that. Yes,
and so it's it's even from having a bad day,
I agree.
right? And you have to step back and go, okay, how do I choose to have this bad day? Now emotions are real. I'm not telling people to not, feel their emotions. You have to feel to heal. Just have to.
Absolutely. Because if you don't, it'll stay stuck in the body. I think we're
Right.
going to talk about that in
Right.
a little bit too.
Right. So you do have to do that. But how do you choose to do it? Angrily, frustration, or through grace? You know? And when I had cancer, I chose to walk through grace. And that was kind of hard because my family never knew how bad it was because they always like, well, it wasn't that bad for you because I wasn't a complainer. I was like, okay, this is what's going on. I have to deal with it, go walk through it. But my doctors would say that people like me, that they would see, their outcomes seem to be less harsh, because I had two different doctors. One doctor that I just loved so much. And then when he wasn't there once, this other doctor came and he was there and he was just like, fear of everything. You're going to get this and it's going to be painful and it's going to be burning. You're not going to be able to sit. And I'm just digesting it and going, oh my, oh my, oh my. And then I went home going, how does he know that's going to happen to me? So why don't I not own what he says and allow what's going to happen to me and walk through it when it happens rather than being so fearful of what they think is going to happen. And I know doctors mean well, what, because they're trying to give you what could happen, be prepared. This is here. But a lot of times that can cause so much fear that sometimes it can make that happen for us
Well,
because
self-fulfilling prophecy, placebo effect is so real. When I was a pharmaceutical sales rep, that was what clinical trials had to beat was statistical significance against placebo. And when I first started selling an antibiotic, years later after the antibiotic had been out a long time, the placebo effect had increased. And I think that that's happening more and more as people are waking up and understanding their power and really believing in things. And it doesn't even matter a lot of times to people if they think that it is something that really and truly can heal them. There's that belief. People know that that happens.
Mhm.
So I want to ask you some questions about your near death experience. And the first one that I want to go back to is that you talked about a spiritual surgeon. And I know that we have the ability to call on a team of spirits, guides, angels, passed away loved ones who help us. So, did you understand or know or recognize who that spiritual surgeon was to you?
No, I felt that that was a spiritual surgeon. Um, I have spiritual surgeons that come into my room now during healing sessions and for all different issues. It's not always the same doctor. But I do believe that, if they love their work here, they want to continue it on the other side. And so God works through them, guides them. But there's times in the surgery rooms that I hear like, wasn't that cool? You know, as like, did you believe that we could ever do that? Like, it's just remarkable, and sometimes you'll hear, like, a noise in the room, they'll drop a tool, and there's nothing in my room, and the client can hear it on the recording, or sometimes I'll say, "Oh my gosh," the nurse will be like, "Oh, I love this part, I love this part," and I'm like she's like, "Oops, sorry," and the person that is in their spot, when they listen to it, they're like, "I could see her. I saw her. I saw the nurse." And so it's really quite fascinating what can all take place.
Can you share one of the, I guess, the most concrete or the memory that sticks out the most to you about working with a spiritual surgeon?
Okay, so they're probably almost 99% of my healings. Okay.
Whoa.
Yeah. So there's always something. And the reason is because God gave me the gift to feel. So I will feel where they're working. I will feel what's going on and describe. So I might not know anything about you, but I can remember going and saying, "Oh, this, you're wearing a kidney bag. It's on your left. They're going into your kidneys. They're going to cleanse your kidneys. They're going to heal the, and then God's going to go in and heal the kidneys." And then you're sending this MP4, you know, to another world, to another state, to another country. And then they listen to it and they go, "Yeah, how would you know that I had anything wrong with my kidneys? And I do have that bag." So it's incredible. It's not me. It just they show me what is on the body that needs to be healed. And sometimes, like I said, it could be emotional trauma. And so they might be coming for an actual illness. I just did this one for a woman that had um she had COVID for a long time and she couldn't kick it. And she was really suffering. Well, I can remember taking her on a spiritual journey and having going to this space, and all of a sudden I'm like, "What are you doing here?" And I knew that normally if a loved one comes through, I'm like, "Oh, your dad's here." But I was like, I just had this feeling he shouldn't be here. And here, the father was here, and she had to face her father. And since she was a child, had sexual abuse from him. So now we're healing on those levels. And I would have never known. And the things that took place that day that we went to childhood trauma, and now she's in her late 70s, early 80s, all these years. And so she says, even to this day, now that she's healed, people ask, "Well, how did you get healed?" She goes, "This is way too big for them to understand." You know,
Yeah, that's true. I think people who are meant to find this will be drawn to it. And for a lot of people listening, it probably is too much. It's too much because it's a lot of times outside of religious beliefs, it's outside of what they think is possible. And that's why I always tell people as they're listening to these things, take in what resonates, let go of what doesn't, because maybe it's not for you now. Maybe it will be for you later. Maybe you'll never revisit it. But
I love that because a lot of times people listen to something and it's kind of, it sits in the back of their mind. And then all of a sudden, a loved one gets sick and they go, "Wait a minute, I heard that person, I heard that name. What can I do?" And I do offer these group healings so that anybody in the world,
like people will get on a Zoom call, multiple people, and you're able to work with lots of people at the same time.
everything is remote. So nobody's on a Zoom at all, ever. So in a private session, you're going to send me your picture. In a group session, you're going to send me your picture. And
So
so
you're not on a technology, you're just connecting just like with the mediums when you were doing the readings, all you knew was that you're to connect with XYZ person.
right. And sometimes people want to tell me because they want me to, here, God, this is what we're working on. So it's up to that person what they want. Okay. I'm open to either because I'm not going to just limit to that. I'm going to say, here's what they're asking for, but I'm open to everything and all. And now I'm just the instrument, right? So I just have to step aside and be their proxy. So if it's in a group session, we gather all around the world. And it's one world, one love, and our intention is miracle. So when we all stand together holding hands, is that same intention, right? It's just amazing the things that come through, and it's collectively talked to the group. There's usually a theme that comes through at the beginning for me, but then when I go through the body, I'll be touching all different areas, not knowing who it goes to, and then I get the feedback like, that was me, that was me. Yeah, it's fascinating. I do one Zoom though, once a month on Tuesdays, that's free. It's called Army for Love, and it's a place where people come that's for support. And we talk nothing about politics, but only about, what's their struggles. And we really help one another because maybe somebody else went through it and wants to be there for that other person. But I allow spirit to speak through me and guide them. And we've had some tough conversations. But at the end of the session, I do a mini healing. And that's every first Tuesday of the month at 3 o'clock Mountain Standard Time. So
I
it's,
love it. That's
I
really
try to give a
amazing.
little bit in different
Yeah.
ways. Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's really special. So you mentioned that you were looking around in your near-death experience. Did you ever happen to look at your body to see what it looked like?
The third one, the
Mhm.
third NDE. Um, I watched him carry my body and I looked like a little girl actually with my hair down his arm. And I looked very sick because I'm like, wow, if I have to be carried, that's the first thing that I thought, I must be really, really sick. And then placed me on the beam and I didn't see at that time. I just remember being carried. But I
And
felt
what did God look like then?
it was interesting. People ask me that, and I'm hesitant to say because I really believe God comes in many different forms
Oh, totally,
for us
100%,
all to
yeah.
see. And I don't want it to just be one way because what I recognize was for me, but what you recognize is for you. And so if I say one way and people are stuck to that way, are they gonna, not accept what they see? So the way I describe God is a beam of light.
Okay.
And so he's this beam of light, and I see the beam of light come into my healing sessions. And when I see that, I feel it. I'll start to cry. It's an intense love that is so overwhelming, you can't deny it. And that's how I would describe God is love, an energy of love.
Course. That's been my experience on the other side also. There is nothing in that space except for love. There just isn't. And I know for some people it's really hard to believe that that could be all that exists, but it truly was, at least in my experience.
Well, it is, and I've healed animals, and this is interesting too
You
because
have, oh, we need to really talk. You've healed animals.
yes, so I don't know if you're familiar with the medium Suzanne Wilson. So she had her dog Baron come to me. And so Baron stayed with Suzanne in her space. And I had the picture of Baron. And I'm going into the session and I'm like, all right, Baron, you're up. Right. And I hear Baron talk to me and say, I'd really like some lavender on my head. I go, I don't bring oils in my center, my healing room. He goes, I really would like some lavender oil on my head. It'll make me feel better. And I'm like, "Oh, let me go search." So I find some lavender, put it on the picture, rub it on my hands. You smell it, everything good. Well, he had a spiritual surgeon surgery, and the doctors did say exactly what was wrong with him. So when he was diagnosed later, Suzanne said it was exactly what I had said it was. But she nearly fell off her chair when she said he just had to have this lavender. She goes, I put lavender oil on his head every night before we go to bed. And I go, what? So I did a test. I'm like, I have a dog. Maybe they all love lavender oil. So I got my lavender oil up that night and I put it near my dog. My dog's like, whoa, whoa, whoa. Hated the
I am
smell.
so glad you're saying that because I was like, please, anything but lavender oil. I do not like the smell at all. I can't
See?
tolerate it. I can smell it in shampoos and everything. Oh, like, no. I love my dog so much. I would do it, but no.
See? See? But that just shows how personalized it was. Right. And that's what these sessions are. They're very personalized.
I love
And
it.
and even in my Army for Love, like, and then 5 to 15-minute healing session, I'm touching on different points. Sometimes I see a spiritual surgeon, and we had a guy that was a police officer with a neck injury. He joined for the first time, didn't know what was wrong with him, but he was completely healed in that 15 minutes. And he comes and joins on every month to support other people. I've seen another person that was partially blind. Her one eye was blind, the other one wasn't. And in that 15 minutes, she went, um, I'm raising my hand after, several people talked, but I had to make sure that I'm really seeing. And she went back to her doctor. Yeah, she had got her vision back. So it doesn't, you just never know when it's going to happen, in the private session, a group session, or just showing up. And sometimes people show up over and over and over, and they get discouraged. Like, why are other people being healed and not me? And I'm like, I'm not God. And maybe that's part of your journey. Maybe you have to ask why it's happening to you. And it can be frustrating, even for family members. You have a family member that's going through a hard journey and you want to help them and you can't. Why? Why is that? And I think it's just, we each have our own journey. And sometimes whatever we're going through, we have to go through it. Maybe it's temporary. Maybe it will be fixed. Maybe it won't. But I do believe miracles happen in so many different ways, even if they're embraced by love.
Yeah. Yes, miracles. Amazing. I have two more questions I want to ask you about this near death experience. You said that they put your life contract in front of you. So I've talked a lot about on the show. I did a whole series of videos called Uncover Your Soul's Purpose, What You Don't Know is Holding You Back. And in the first three, I talked about this life contract that we create for every lifetime, because in order to experience what we need to experience, we have to pick everything: our parents, people that we want to interact with, what our body looks like, where we live, what time of the astrological sign we're born in, because it all influences us. So, will you first explain what you understand about life contracts? And then can you tell us, if you saw it in a way that you could describe, what a life contract actually looks like?
I never knew what a lifeline contract was, ever. And this is the first time I was seeing one. But as I was looking at it, I didn't question it. It just seemed like so natural, like, oh yeah, here it is. Let me look at it. Why not? Of course, this is the way it's supposed to be. And so looking at the lifeline contract, like I said, I didn't get to see my past, and I wasn't going to be able to see my future. And I really believe I couldn't see my future because, we can't know what's in front of us. We have to walk the walk and just see what's coming to us. Can we change it? Well, it seemed to me that I was able to change it. And I really believe with the lifeline contract, we make choices in life. And the choices that we choose to make have that free will, right? It might be in the contract that, oh, I'm going to do this in life. And for some reason we go off path, right? And so now all of a sudden we take a right and we're supposed to take a left. Well, that's part of the free will, and that's part of us learning, and that's part of us being in this human suit to go through these human experiences. So sometimes people say, well, do you think that they were meant to pass that way? Or do you think that it was part of their contract? Or do you think that they just made the wrong choice and that happened? That can be hard to know, because a loved one might say, yeah, it was my time. I couldn't live here anymore. Suicide, a lot of times that'll come through where it's like, I was done with this world. Was it in my contract? Some, yes, and some, no. So I really believe, like, my car accidents, did they happen for me? I believe so, because it all built into who I am today. Now, asking me that when it was, excuse me, the energy starts to shift on me. When it was happening to me, I'd be like, this isn't happening to me. I lost my car. It's all crunched. I have to go through pain, but when we step back years later and see it, yes. So free will comes into play. You've got your contract there. You're living out your purposes. And that's what I'm feeling is each one of those were shifts to get me right where I am today? Will that still make me have these little, not everything's gonna be smooth. It's gonna have hiccups and things in the road.
Yeah, because
Yeah,
we're having human life, right? Of
right.
course.
So it's like, so yeah, it can be confusing, right? But I really believe that you're right. We came down for a purpose. And so many people want to know what is their purpose. They're searching for that purpose. It's all within you. If you just sat and listened, it's that strong willing to do something. You're like, I know I have to do this work. I know I had to do this mediumship work. And then it just kept unfolding and unfolding and unfolding. But you trust it. And sometimes it's hard to trust in something because it's like, well, if I have to quit a job to do this work, how am I going to make the money? And that's what happened to me. What am I going to do? I felt like I had no choice, but I always knew that I would have what I need when I needed it. And if you live by that, it takes that fear away. And it is very empowering to say, I trust. I trust in this process.
Yeah, I think that's the goal, is to get to that place where we eliminate as much fear, bring in as much love as we can, and just try to figure out the purpose doesn't have to be something grandiose. One
Mm.
of the things that I was shown on the other side is that my life's purpose might even sound mundane or really, really simple to other people, but I knew that my purpose is to take that love that I felt on the other side and just bring it into my human body and send it into the world, whether it's, through a contact or a conversation with a single person, or whether it's thousands of people that hear a conversation. Somehow it's supposed to emanate in a way that I don't really understand, but I know that that is my purpose. So it doesn't have to be something massive. You're not necessarily meant to change everything in the world.
Correct. And I think I like what you're doing. You're saying it'll touch that person in the way it's meant to touch that person. So it might make a big impact. It might leave a little, plant a seed, whatever it does, you're open to whatever, you're sending
It
the love.
might even repel somebody because they don't like what they're hearing, but it sends them in a direction. Because I love that Rush song and the lyric, if you choose not to decide, you still have made a choice. And I think one of the things that we are meant to do is to actually be decisive and make choices, not be paralyzed to not act.
Right. And choices, that's, we've all had to make choices, and choices can be hard, and it can be paralyzed. What decision do I make? That's my lifelong decision. I could make the wrong decision.
And
Go
then
to
you
your,
don't do anything.
yeah. And that paralyzes you. So go to your heart. What does the choice
Yeah.
tell you, right? Go to your heart.
Yeah.
Because when you think with your brain, you're just going to spiral all the ego, all the thoughts, all the what ifs, and the what ifs do not serve you. But if you just go, all right, here's my choice. How does it feel? The feeling will always answer you. That heart will always tell you the truth, but then you gotta listen and you gotta trust it. Yeah.
Yeah, that's sometimes that's easier said than done, right?
Yeah.
Okay, I was only going to ask you two more questions, but actually, I still have two questions, because you said something I've never heard anybody say before. And I've thought this for a very long time because I've watched, read, listened to thousands of these near death experiences. And that is that you were shown that the place that you were in your near death experience wasn't necessarily fully the other side, it was a different dimension. So, will you elaborate on what you understand about that a little bit?
I feel it was another dimension because I didn't completely cross over. If I would have completely crossed over, I don't know if I would have had a chance to come back. So we met in this other dimension, halfway, let's say. And even with mediumship, I feel spirit meets you halfway, and we're having that frequency, making that connection. And so that's what I'm doing now in my healing work too, tapping into that frequency, tapping into that energy, that vibration, that light, letting it come through. letting it heal. But going to that other dimension, I was there twice now. I was in there for a car accident. Now, was that dimension same? I don't feel so. I felt like the dimension with my car accident was lower, which is
Mm.
really
Well,
interesting because
it's
I've
just a
never,
vibration, right?
yeah, yeah. And then like I didn't really go that far. This time I felt like, ooh, I really traveled far. And um being able to go into a space where it was like, energy people can hear, the vibration they can hear, the feelings they could hear, but we're going into this dome where no one can hear. I thought that was really a powerful moment for me.
Well, and that was actually you're bringing this as a perfect thing. You set me up so beautifully because my last question was about that dome. I've also never heard anybody say, I am going to be given a message by source, by God, but I'm taking you to this place to deliver a message because you are the only one in the entire universe that is meant to hear this message. So, Deborah, what in the world are you allowed to even say that he told you?
Basically, was going through the contract and this new mission that I was going to be on. And I didn't know what that mission was until I started doing healings. When I came back to the other side, I was seeing myself heal, self healings, and then I started dabbling into the healing works. And then I saw, Hodgkin's lymphoma, the spine and the brain being completely healed, going, what just happened in 5 days, right? Wow. So you're seeing these miraculous healings, and now you you cannot not do them, right? And so the voice that I heard in that poem when I wrote that, it's like voice of the medium. No, it's the voice of spirit. So when I'm doing a healing session, all the words channel through me. I'm talking like blah 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 nonstop, and saying the things like, Mary Poppins, saying the trauma you were abused, saying, I saw you have an abortion, and guess what? You humanly are judging yourself for you, but I'm not judging you. I love you. So don't judge yourself. And so all the words that come through, I don't even remember them. I'll be done and go, wow, that was really powerful. What was that saying? What was this? Because it's just that miraculous. And I don't know people. They're from all over the world, and for it to come through saying exactly what they need to hear. So basically, when I go into a session, here I'm that voice now. I never would have thought that ever. And so when I'm in a session, right before I say, I open myself up as your vessel, as your healing instrument. So I will see, so I will hear, so I will feel, and so I will voice exactly what they need, removing my humanness aside, allowing you to orchestrate it. So all outcomes are up to source, not up to me. And then
Yeah.
it frees you. It frees me from the pressure. I dealing with children with cancer, and you have children yourself, you feel that, oh, this could be my child. I have to remove that pressure. And then getting to know some of these people as doctors do. I'm not a doctor, but you get to know them and work with them for a long time. Your heart's attached. And so
Course.
you're saying, okay, I have to remove myself from this. This isn't about me. I can't take the credit, nor can I say what's going to happen or not happen.
Yeah.
Because there's times where it doesn't turn out the way I want it.
Of course. That's life because things happen in the way that they're meant to because we don't know what we've teed up for ourselves that we're going to need, right?
Right. Well, I had this one woman come and she was dying, and she had 3 months to live, and just she had the healing session. It was just profound, and it went to trauma, that she was unworthy growing up and all through life. And so she emailed me and said, I feel like my cancer's gone. And she met with friends. She went to Sedona. She had this beautiful, like, should I even plan my funeral because I feel like everything's fine? And I go, well, I would still have everything planned. You can put that in the file, right? Well, 2 weeks later, she passed. And I was like, what? What? Well, she had wrote to me that I gave her the greatest gift. It wasn't the cancer that she needed healed. It was this trauma. And she was able to pass without any of this baggage. And that's profound. And she was a really dear friend of Suzanne Giesemann. I don't know if people know who she is.
Yeah, yeah,
So,
she spoke at IANDS this year.
yeah, so she still connects with her, and she comes through strongly saying it was meant to be.
I love that you shared this story specifically, Deborah, because oftentimes people think that if they just find the right person, so a healer, an evidential medium, that they will get what they're looking for. But you've just confirmed something that is so evident to me in doing all of these interviews with people is that nobody dies before their time. But when it's your time, it's your time. So it doesn't matter what you've done, what you've tried to do to mitigate it. If it's your time, or if somebody prevented you from getting in a car that was meant to be a car accident, then maybe you're going to get hit walking across the street the next day. Like you, when it's your time, you're going to go. And when it's not your time, conversely, you are not.
Yeah, and I think that's what we need to two things here. I had it all, the spirit was giving me all these things to say, and I was like, okay, where is it now? Um, Two things. When we pass, out of every near-death experience I had, I can say this with 100% of who I am and from my heart. We will not feel pain no matter what. If somebody was shot, somebody was killed in a horrific car accident, somebody was murdered, somebody you witnessed having struggling in their body, taking their last breath, they're not feeling it. That's the body going through it. The spirit no longer feels it. I was out of body. I was watching. I was present. So we will not die in pain. So take that with you. And the other part is you talk about, is it your time? And can we predict that going to the right person? Will the right person be able to predict anything? I think that's like the key here. Everybody thinks that we all have the answers, right? The answers lie within us. But I do believe, like, use every tool in your toolbox. So
Yes,
when
for
I had
sure.
when I had cancer, it was like, as a healer, should I just do healing work? What are they going to think if I went to chemo? What are they going to think if I went to radiation? So I sat with that, what was right with me, in prayer. And I heard, use every tool. I made that medicine. I made this for you. So I walked the walk doing everything plus my own healing work and made the combination of everything. So I don't try to say only do it one way,
Yeah.
do it your way, because there is no right or wrong way.
Yeah, I think that's so important. Well, you shared so much. I cannot imagine people watching not wanting to connect with you, whether it's for some type of a healing, whether it's to connect with a loved one, whether it's to have some help with their pets. So tell us a little bit about how people can work with you. I know you have a book also.
I'm an author of 6 books.
Holy
So
cow.
my most recent one is Proof of Miracles. Well, I won't say recent, but as far as the healing work goes. And then I have anyone dealing with any kind of illness is Doctor's Faith and Courage. And that's my journey through cancer, so that how they could use my prayers and see how they can integrate it into their healing. So you can go to my website at Golden Miracles, make sure it has an S, goldenmiracles.com. You can also Google Debra Martin. And everything's on there. If you want to join my Army for Love on Tuesdays, you just go to that page, the Zoom link's there. You can listen to more of my healing testimonials of, real, true healing and hope testimonials on my YouTube channel. And just all of that, all my social media, you can get right on my website. So it's very easy.
I appreciate that. Wow. I have thoroughly enjoyed this conversation. I'm actually really looking forward to meeting you in person since we live so close. That's definitely going to happen. But I want to thank you, Deborah, so much for opening up your heart, for sharing what you do, not just so that you're writing a book and you're doing readings, but that you do these things philanthropically so that people can connect with you, even if they don't have the means to be able to do that. I just think that you are really walking the walk, talking the talk, and doing so much to help raise the vibration of the collective consciousness. And I want to thank you so much for what you're doing.
Oh, thank you. I really believe if we do everything out of love, try to anyway, we'll have no regrets. And so if we can just walk in that attitude, gratitude of always doing everything out of love, no matter how hard it is. And that I'm not saying sometimes we have to voice our truth and it doesn't sound like it's coming from love, but when we're honoring the other person by telling them our truth, it is coming from love.
I agree. Definitely.
Thank you to you.
Thank you. And thank you so much, everybody, for watching. Next up, check out this playlist of other NDE interviews. Please like and subscribe. It really helps this channel to grow so I can bring you more content. Thank you for watching. I'm so glad you're here.